Okay, as you know, I've got a bunch of projects going, and I've shown this 68 Camaro a couple times. And I said before that I didn't like the way somebody had put the quarter panels on, and I just wasn't real comfortable with it, so I cut the passenger side one off and was going to replace it with a skin. Well, I got to looking a little further, and I didn't like some other things I found, part of which was where they had done the kind of repair work back here where the quarter panel meets the tail panel. I didn't like that, and of course I have a tail panel I'm going to put in too. There's one right there. Well, I started doing some trimming and found that I didn't like this either. You can see how pitted, and these are some spotty welds that they've put in here. And what they had done is whenever they welded this back in, they cut a groove like where they thought there should be a seam. But this stuff is so thin right here and so full of Bondo, I just don't like it at all. And then I noticed that they also cut up the deck filler panel. This piece is supposed to be attached. Well, then I moved up to the sail panel, and I thought something didn't look quite right, so I started grinding out. That's what all this dust is right here, and this is cheap Bondo, by the way. But I don't know if you can hear that or not, but that's the sail panel, or a root panel, if you want to call it. It's just soft and crunchy. So I went ahead and bit the bullet, and I bought a full quarter. And I liked it so much. This is an AMD product, real heavy metal. I was really impressed by just how thick it is. Stamping's real nice, and it's kind of hard to show you, but that is some thick metal. You can hear it when you hit it. You know, and this stuff up here in the old skin, this was a good mark skin. It's like paper compared to it. So, there you go. AMD 866-591-8309 or autometaldirect.com. I know a vendor, a supplier for one of these guys, and I take that back. I know a distributor for this company, and good guy. He's done some work with me before, but it was such a good metal I went ahead and bought two of them. I got the left and right because I found some other stuff where they had done some really shoddy weld repairs on this other one, and again, real pitted metal, and kind of the same thing up here where they put the filler panel in. Really bad. I mean, just not even a flat weld, but it's just junk. And to also alleviate all the pitting that's here on this window channel, get rid of that and, you know, take care of that problem. So here is a that panel. I haven't opened the box yet, but let's take a minute, see what it looks like. Oh yes, that's real nice. Oh, and this one's even got the studs on it. Look at that. It's got studs for the window trim. That's an AMD part as well. I don't know if you can tell, Ben, that is some thick metal right there. That's going to weld super nice. And that's going to look so good compared to what's sitting in that car right now. I can't wait to get all this together. So that's the latest. See if I can't get this thing moving. Okay, as I said, working on this quarter panel, tail panel, and I started cutting things loose. And this is one thing that I get caught up with. You know, this car, I thought when I got it was a pretty decent car, but then again, I always think that most people will do the same kind of work that I do and take pride in the kind of work that they do to a car. This isn't the case. What I did find was this outer trunk pan, or filler panel, trunk pan extension, I think they're called. It's just falling apart. you know, and they had put some patches in here and covered it up. It looked like they used caulking from a house type deal, like a sink or something, to seal this stuff up and hide their work. This is why you got to be real careful, and I was a little too excited probably when I got this car. But the tail panel, when I cut it loose, I cut it off of where the latch assembly hooks on, and then I cut the edges over here, and you can just see they just did some really shoddy kind of work, and again they covered it up really good. Well, I started pulling on this tail panel, and all they did was take caulking and basically glue it to the trunk pan. So other than the ends where it's welded and maybe a few spots on the bottom, there's not much holding this panel on. So real disappointed in that. Again, people just don't take pride in what they do, and be wary of cars that you look at buying, because people will hide stuff and just turn $1 on you and not care that the car's a piece of junk. So that's a warning to you. I'm just going to keep cutting. Okay, I wanted to show you this. I've trimmed off most of the quarter panel, but I still want to get the seam separated up here. But the problem is there's lead up here. So if my torch will stay together and do the job, I'm going to melt out the lead. You want to be careful you don't let this stuff land on your feet, obviously. This lead will come out and it'll reveal the seam. This is all they did with the old cars. Really up into, I think up into the early 80s. No, late 70s they still did. Late 70s they still did this, but obviously they don't use lead anymore. Imagine there's too many health concerns and environmental concerns. There's a lot of lead. You know, somebody's got a race car and they want to do some add some weight to their car, save this stuff and give it to them. They can melt it down and make some lead ingots or anchors. Well, there you go. Let me show you here. Now you can see the seam, which is right there, run all the way across, and you can find your spot welds that hold all that together and trim those off, because your new panel has that same shape. It's got this recess area here that rolls up underneath that piece, the roof panel, it should say. So I'll let this cool off, do a little grinding, and then I'll start separating it. And there's all that lead, and that lead doesn't bond to anything, and you can just pick it up once it's, you know, once it's melted like that. Because lead does not do anything but fill, you know. It's not like being welded in like steel. So, and I'll get that seam separated, and then I can work on fitting up the other quarter panel. Okay, let me point out a few more things. as I've been working on this quarter panel, I started drilling out these spot welds, and it's kind of working. It may not be the best way to go about it. Kind of playing with it right now, but I wanted to show you a couple things. The drip rail, which is, I found this is different than like a Mustang. The quarter panel sits down in this channel, which is different than like a Ford. A Ford, the quarter goes on and then the drip rail welds from the bottom side. A little bit different. Still functions fine. The other thing I'm going to have to do is, with the new quarter, it has this door jamb as an assembly. So I'm going to separate these welds all the way back into here and here and take this whole piece out. But there's an inner structure here that holds the striker and creates a form for this to attach to. So that's got to stay. So I have to take that loose separately. But this goes along with what I was saying earlier about how some people don't do a good job, even given the opportunity. This is the panel, the filler panel, that I showed earlier that had, there's supposed to be a piece right here that's kind of messed up. They must have had this out because there was only 3 little spot welds. One there, and somewhere over here, I think. I cut those spot welds loose after I cut it off of the quarter panel, and this thing just popped. I mean, it just popped right out of there. So you can see that they didn't weld anything back together. And then this piece is supposed to go into where the seal goes, and I'm sure it's supposed to be welded or something, but apparently it's not. And of course, I've already shown you the new piece. You know, here's that lip back here that's going to go in the gutter, and then this forward piece, kind of hard to see from that angle, this curve right here drops into right here. It creates the finish for the package shelf. So, I don't know, just a piece of junk there. The other thing I want to point out was, I didn't notice till a little bit ago that the inner channel piece here that creates the lip for the seal to attach to does not come as part of the quarter panel. Same way as this piece up here. This piece all the way across. Looking at the new quarter, and it's kind of hard to see, this is just flat right here. There's no lip. So that's going to have to be something I need to come up with. But interestingly enough, the tail panel comes with that lip already on it. So that being said, that's one thing I'll either have to salvage or come up with new ones, because they're kind of rough looking. I'll have to see what I can do. But it's coming along. Okay, I've gotten off all the cut pieces from this quarter panel. This is that inner structure piece I was telling you about. Oddly enough, this is like one of the few pieces that's actually galvanized. Why they didn't do this to all the metal, I don't know. But I'm glad I cut this thing apart, because what I found was whoever butchered this thing together before, this whole piece right here, the curved piece, it was basically Bondo. There was nothing there to hold it together. You can still see some of the trace pieces of Bondo down here where they just created this inner piece. Once I put in the new panel, I'll probably cut out, you know, the rusted areas here, and I'll just fabricate a piece that'll go inside there to fill that. I'm not going to replace this inner piece. But also, as I came up and I went ahead and cut off the piece that was here that held the dripper, or the gutter for the trunk seal. You can kind of see it better if I back up. I just cut it off completely. I did find that they make those pieces, so I'm not going to reuse what I had. Here it is. This piece was in here, like that. But I'm not going to reuse that since they make them. This metal's pretty junk. This lip here, you can see where somebody has cut in the before when they cut this thing apart. They just about cut this thing off anyway. So they make a piece that'll weld to this, and I'll probably cut this off and re-weld it. Same way up here, they cut all the way through that inner piece. But one other thing I was going to show you, and this may not be for the normal way to do things, what I did, I ended up cutting off the overlap here. I test fitted the quarter panel and it didn't fit well enough the way it was, and part of the problem was this inner piece here. This is part of the old quarter panel right here. Well, it's got welds up above inside of here. So what I'll probably do is cut this thing off as high as I can, get this piece out of the way, so when I set the new piece in, I can have it in place, and then I can lay this piece back on top. And I can show you here on the new quarter. See, it's got that drop in there. And there was a piece of metal hanging off the top here. I cut that off because there's just not enough room for it. So anyway, just wanted to show you that before I went any further.